to episode 65 of Top of Mind with Hao and Chris. Today is Friday. What month is it? It's February.
February 7th.
Thank you. February 7th, 9:41 in the morning Pacific time. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Mag 7 earnings expectations.
We're going to talk about DeepSeek, China's AI.
That's been all over the news this last week.
All over.
We're going to talk about tariffs.
Eggs again.
Eggs.
Our favorite topic. We're just going to be an egg podcast.
I text you every weekend about eggs or lack thereof.
It's always going to be a picture of eggs on our text sheet.
Or no eggs. Like this weekend, I sent you this picture
or lack
of where
thereof.
the eggs go.
Yeah.
Little egg sign. No eggs.
Yogurt. Was it yogurt or sour cream? Whatever you said.
You got Waterloo waters in there now. You've got orange juice, which is mostly sold out. You've got
Anything
egg substitutes.
Okay.
They threw some bagels in there. Yogurt, too. You're right. They got the yogurt section. Bone broth. Why not?
Context. Chris texted me a picture of a Houston grocery store where their eggs were supposed to be.
Sorry. This was Seattle. But
Seattle
what I was telling
store.
you was I was just in Houston, and they had plenty of eggs.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. I think this is all a bunch of BS.
Okay. Well, we're
Give
paying
me those
$9
eggs that are in Houston.
We're paying $9 here per dozen. Last price I saw.
And then I sent you this thing. I can't believe this is. I don't think this is true, but you never know what's AI these days. I sent you this Costco thing on Instagram. Maybe
where people are loading up their pallets of eggs, right?
People are loading up. This guy has this cart, and it's just like full of eggs. Like, you got to be kidding me. They let him check out.
Yeah, someone should punch that guy.
What's he doing with them?
Probably reselling them. Like, why would you need that many eggs?
Oh, you think he's reselling them?
Because what would you do? Well, unless you're a restaurant owner, we'll talk about that. But why would you need that many eggs?
Yeah, because totally good thought. Because I was looking at that going, I mean, they last a long time, but not that long. You're not going to eat.
Yeah, there's no way you could eat. Yeah, like 1,000 eggs, right?
Reselling them. So yeah, he could be a restaurant. That's interesting.
That's either reseller or restaurant, not a consumer of eggs.
Do restaurants get priority over grocery? Because I've never been to brunch, and they're like, "Hey, sorry, like all we got today is French toast. Actually, can't even do that. That takes eggs." All
we just got like bacon and tomatoes, and
we
your
got
SOL
lox
on eggs.
Lox on a bagel. That's what we got today.
Maybe, I don't know. I know there's a different distribution network, like Cisco. You always see the Cisco, not the networking company, the SYCO.
Yep.
They deliver to restaurants. I don't know if they get priority though. I don't think so.
It must be a different distribution channel.
Yeah.
Because it's just you've never seen all these shortages. Like, oh, we can't get, there's no steak on the menu, or there's no whatever. Like restaurants never seem to run out.
Yeah.
Let
us know. Anyone who runs a restaurant.
Anyway, coming back. Fifth thing we're going to talk about today is Amazon exceeds Walmart in revenue for the first time. This just hit the news. We just saw it.
I thought that happened years ago.
I thought that happened years ago too.
Yeah.
But that's big news, and also Amazon is ridiculously more profitable. All right, let's get rolling. Mag 7 earnings on FactSet. This data is from FactSet. So the title of this post here is, are Mag 7 companies top contributors to earnings growth for the S&P for Q4? And we thought that our listeners would find this interesting. Let me just kind of read through this. So overall, 3 of the companies in the Mag 7 are projected to be among the top 10 contributors to year-over-year earnings growth for the S&P in Q4. NVIDIA, Amazon, and Alphabet. I guess now we have that data. I don't know if that is true. All 3 of those have released earnings in the last couple of days. Outside of these 3 Mag 7 companies, the other 7 companies that are top 10 contributors to year-over-year growth are banks. So Bank of America, Citigroup, JP Morgan, and Truist. Pharmaceuticals, Eli Lilly, Merck, semiconductors, Micron. All 7 of these companies are benefiting from easier comparisons to weaker earnings reported in the year ago quarter. So they weren't doing so well a year ago. Now they're doing better. So that earnings growth.
Yeah. So that's actually great insight. We call it that earnings recession. So it's painful to go through it, but coming out of it the next year, very good time to potentially invest. It's a lower bar to clear. because you're always comparing yourself from Q3 23 to Q4 24, right? So if you had that dip, there's that extra, I don't know, the extra wattage to jump over it, and it's that much easier. So that's called the earnings recession.
Good insights there.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, good insights there. We've talked on prior episodes that the banks have jumped since the elections with the anticipation of more mergers and acquisitions happening, and that hits their bottom line.
Yeah.
And that's started to happen, so that they jumped in Q4, and then they actually reported earnings and jumped more on the big banks. And so to Hao's point, earnings the year prior weren't as good, and they jumped. Therefore, they have a big percentage increase and a big contribution increase. It's interesting to see some biotech companies in here too. So in aggregate, the Magnificent Seven companies are expected to report year-over-year earnings growth of, get this, 22%. Let me read that again. The Magnificent Seven companies are expected to report year-over-year earnings growth of 22% for the fourth quarter. Excluding these 7 companies, the blended of everybody else earnings growth, so this is for the 493 companies, is 10%, half, for the same quarter. This would mark the highest earnings growth rate for the other 493 companies since the second quarter of 2022, which was 11.4%. Overall, when you blend all of this together, the blended earnings growth for Q4 is 12.5%. What jumps out at you? Through that.
One, people should be aware of expectations. So what is already priced in? No one knows up until the point where earnings are released, right? So Microsoft had a really good quarter, like a really good quarter. I just can't fathom how good a quarter was. It was guidance that was lowered down a little bit. Microsoft sold off by 4 to 5%. The expectations that are baked in, we don't fully know until we know. So once, let's say, Amazon hits a 22% year-over-year growth, that sounds great. That sounds better than ExxonMobil, where it's like 4% year-over-year growth, right? Yeah, do you want Amazon? Well, not necessarily, because how much of that 22% is expected? And if they miss it by 1%, oh my gosh, the sell-off occurs, right?
I guess
Amazon's a good... Yeah, same thing happened to Amazon just yesterday.
So the same thing jumps out at me. There's a lot more pressure on these top companies, these big companies.
Expectations are higher, yeah.
22% earnings growth. However, the 493 growing at 10, that's actually really, really good. I know that sounds like, it's half, like there's no growth there. No, that's actually a really, really good rate. And as mentioned, it's the highest rate since Q2 of 2022. Here's one more thing I would throw out too. So, analysts predict that the companies in the Magnificent Seven in aggregate will report earnings growth of more than 17% over the next 4 quarters. So here's the deal. It's slowing, right? Coming back to what I said there. So the Mag 7 are expected to report year-over-year earnings growth in Q4 of 22%. But for the next 4 quarters, they're predicted to grow by 17%. However, analysts believe that the other 493 companies in the index will report year-over-year growth of more than 9% over the next 4 quarters. This is compared to the 9.7% in Q4 of 2024. So what that tells me is that earnings are expected to hold and slightly even increase, I think, for some of these companies, the 493 over the next year. But for the Mag 7, they're actually anticipated to fall by 10 or 15%.
Yeah, we'll see. It's how much of the market has already priced in the slowdown, because everyone knows these figures, right? We're not telling you non-public information. So if the forecasting is widely followed, they could still have upside if there's a positive surprise, meaning it's not as bad as we expected. Tesla's earnings are a good example of, like, hey, we sold less cars for less profit, but it wasn't as bad as everyone expected. Therefore, we're up 10%.
I mean, if Amazon is any indication today of is the market anticipating this slowing growth, I think the answer is no.
Resounding yes.
I think no, because if it was predicted that Amazon would slow its, give a weaker guidance, Amazon wouldn't be down 4% on earnings today.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see it.
What's your side of the coin?
Yeah, they didn't meet expectations in terms of keeping guidance up. Amazon beat earnings as well, pretty handily.
Beat earnings, yeah.
Their issue was they had a 2025 forecast that was lower than, like a smidge lower than expected.
Yeah.
So, but again, we're dealing with big numbers. So a 0.1 miss is billions of dollars.
It is funny. It's something I've never really understood about all this stuff. Is like when a company beats or misses by 0.1 of a billion or something, and the stock's off 5%, and I'm like, what?
Buy. Yeah.
It's a rounding error. Like, what were you really expecting? Were you expecting a huge win, huge outperformance, or a huge underperformance? Like, it's just no, that met guidance. I don't understand.
Yeah, not good enough.
All right, let's move to DeepSeek. So DeepSeek hit the news. Was that last week?
Last Monday, yes.
This Monday?
No, the last Monday of January.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. So you threw some stuff in here on DeepSeek, and let's just kind of unpack what you're seeing. I've got some thoughts on this too.
Yeah. This might feel already stale because the timing is weird when we record, right? We did the Friday before DeepSeek was launched I believe on the Saturday. It just made a ton of news.
Yeah.
And then I even texted Chris like, "Hey, you heard about this DeepSeek app that's like rocketing up the Apple Store?" And they are a Chinese-based company that claims to have as good as performance as OpenAI, Claude, and who else is out there? Gemini, if not better. And the more important part is they used a fraction of the computing cost that these companies use now. Again, the news was taken initially pretty bad by the market. NVIDIA, probably the poster child for AI because it supplies all the AI hyperscalers, right? So it was down 17% that Monday. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to place dates for everyone. Monday, the January 27th. Mm-hmm. That brought the S&P down by 3-ish%. Then NASDAQ was down probably 3% as well. But the issue was we spent all this money for infrastructure, data, power, processing. Then all of a sudden, a Chinese company says, "Oh, actually, you could have done this with 10% of your investment." So the questions that obviously arise were, do people really need these NVIDIA H100 chips, which is like the latest and greatest? They're very expensive. You need lots of them. So if you're needing to buy just 10% of those chips, NVIDIA's market just suddenly collapsed on it, if this is true.
Yeah, interesting. So what I've heard, and our tech clients listening to this is probably going to be like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. But here's what I'm going to try to explain on why.
This is not our expertise here.
So here's how I'm understanding on how they're able to do this with less power. So the way that, say, OpenAI works is when you put in a query for something, it is trying to predict the next word. So, my dog has fleas. When you put in my dog has, it's trying to predict fleas is going to be the next word, right? Well, it has to search like the entire LLM, the entire database in order to make that prediction, which takes a lot of juice. What DeepSeek did is they looked at all the responses essentially from OpenAI, and I believe DeepSeek was more or less trained on OpenAI.
Yeah.
And so when somebody types in "my dog has," they're limiting to fleas, long hair. They're limiting to the most common responses instead of just opening up to the entire universe of words that could fall there. And that's how they're able to create a smaller database, smaller LLM essentially, to then create still relevant responses, but using less power.
Because
that's
right
my
now,
non-technical understanding. Yeah,
because right now you say "my dog has," and it would look up a doctor's degree or has a mechanic's wrench, which would never have any application to any sensible query, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was explained to me way that I probably don't really understand, correct us if I'm wrong, is the DeepSeek system is designed siloed off with reasoning, and that means there's SMEs. So if you're looking up a topic, it's gonna query that particular, I guess, sector of the universe versus the entire search, the entire universe. So I think that if you're having to search everything versus just a siloed subsection, I would imagine you use a lot less computing power just to do that, because you're not scouring the entire universe.
Well,
I could be wrong.
I mean, I think this is ultimately good, right? I mean, competition is good, and I think the fact that this came out, and if it can be proven that it is in fact true and using less power, that speaks really good for our AI tools, because what have we been hearing the last 9 months? Takes a lot of power. Takes a lot of power. We got to turn on more power. You know, that's like the limiting factor. So if we can figure out a way to do all this with less power, that is great.
The companies that were hit, Microsoft, Google, NVIDIA. Microsoft has a pretty well-known investment in OpenAI, which is a closed source system. DeepSeek is open source, so anyone can take that original code and then apply their own application to it. So one, that could be an issue for Microsoft, Google as well, who are trying to sell their closed source solutions. Facebook or Meta came away unscathed. They were actually up on that pretty bloody day, right? I don't know if you remember, like, of all the Mag 7 that was down, Facebook Meta was the top of the pile. I don't think Meta's had a down day since that incident, which is 2 full weeks now.
You know, what I think is going really well with markets right now is the market is responding, in my opinion, sort of accurately to these types of things. So you're seeing the right companies go. So, you know, DeepSeek comes out. The right companies went up and the right companies went down, versus when there's just this outright, fear. Everything goes down or everything goes up, which doesn't really make any sense. Our next topic with tariffs, you know, as tariffs are going into place, certain companies went up and certain companies went down. And that's like the correct response to this. Versus this, oh my God, tariffs, everything goes down. And so I think actually, from my perspective, things are functioning pretty well right now in markets.
Stock pickers are ruling there.
That's fair.
Because Apple was the other winner the previous week and the loser of tariff week. So back-to-back weeks, we had DeepSeek one week, tariff the next week.
Yep.
So DeepSeek week, Meta and Apple won. Apple won because I think their system is designed to be local. So you get to grab an open source system and drop it on an Apple iPhone, and then all of a sudden you got boosted horsepower. Llama is open source as well, and that's a benefit to Facebook or Meta. It was the closed source investors that lost, the Geminis and the OpenAIs, the ChatGPTs.
I heard an interesting take on Apple from Dan Ives, actually, and what is unique about Apple is that they own the App Store, right? And they take a clip on everything that goes through the App Store.
Yeah, so no matter what system you use, Apple's getting a 25%, 30% cut.
And that's the magic of Apple. And, you know, they sold less iPhones, you know, so their hardware came down in the last quarter, maybe a couple quarters, but their services revenue has gone up. And so that's why Apple can be correlated to these types of new apps, because they sell the app through the App Store and they get a clip on that, right? And I don't exactly know how all that works because there's free apps and stuff, but they have some sort of a clip on it. And I think that's interesting, right? That's how they've been able to build their ecosystem, because they own that marketplace. And I know that's kind of a controversial part of Apple, but it's incredibly profitable.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the more right answer than Apple's system being localized versus having to go through the cloud and then come back to you, right?
Right.
You run a query on any of these AIs, they leave your server space and then go out to wherever the data center is and then come back.
Right. All right, let's move to tariffs. We hinted at it just a few minutes ago, but let's go there.
Yeah, so that Friday, so we're talking the week of January 27th, so the Friday, January 31st, after the market close, towards the market close, Trump said he was going to sign on Saturday 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada and 10% tariffs on China. Saturday came, within hours, Mexico came out and said, we're going to delay tariffs for a month because we came to an agreement with border security
Yep.
on Mexico's northern border. So no tariffs there for now. And then Canada, probably a few hours after that, said we're going to meet Trump's demands, whatever they were. We didn't really find anything substantial, honestly, to say what the agreements were, but Canadian tariffs were tabled as well for 30 days.
It seems like both of the agreements are the exact same, actually. So from what I was reading, Mexico agreed to put 10,000 troops to help patrol the northern border, their northern border, and also try to slow, drug trafficking into the United States. Canada agreed to the same thing. They said we're going to increase border security by 10,000 troops, and we're going to slow, drug trafficking into the U.S. So that was like the main thing. Notably, the Canadian tariffs were excluding Canadian oil.
Yeah.
So it's all on pause for 30 days for both countries, but they excluded Canadian oil, which is the largest import to the U.S. from Canada, and the largest revenue stream from a trade partner for Canada.
Yep. And since that day, the market initially reacted negatively that Friday and that Monday, but from its bottom, the Russell 2000 was down 1%. Everything else was flat. And since then, it's been rebounded. So the market, in my opinion, just looking at the charts, very, very unflinching here. Some are saying it was a bluff. It could have been a bluff. I don't know if Mexican border security is even verifiable, or Canadian border security is verifiable for that matter. Yeah. It's just the fact that it got passed along. You know what I mean? Like it's at least the can is kicked down the road. Versus what's happening with China, there's no concession. China says, well, no concession. We're going to counter tariff and slap 15% targeted tariffs on certain U.S. goods. Mm-hmm. So what China has done is they went after soybeans, which out of the Midwest has a very heavy soybean production, and most of it goes to China, right? So in 2017, the Trump administration still does to this day pay about $20 billion a year to subsidize soybean farmers in the Midwest. Hmm. So it looks like China's doing more of the same, where they're targeting, I guess, Trump-backed production to try to really turn the screws on him and his ilk. I don't know how effective that will be. I don't know if anyone remembers tariffs other than the headlines in 2017, because we have data that says prices did not go up.
Right. Okay. My learnings here are that market moves more to things like DeepSeek than it does to tariffs. Correct statement?
Yeah, I think if you call this the AI-driven rally, anything that disrupted that specific AI was probably going to be more impactful than tariffs, where NVIDIA does make its chips through Taiwan. So I didn't really check NVIDIA on the tariff day, but NVIDIA is still well off its bottoms since the DeepSeek week. Mm-hmm. So there's DeepSeek week and tariff week, and we're basically round trip both.
All right, interesting.
So
I hate talking about eggs.
Oh, this next one, the consumers are definitely reflecting the fear of tariffs. It does look like some companies have front-run price increases, even though there have been no official tariffs from a lot of their goods. They're just getting ahead of it or front-running it, which is kind of, I would hope that businesses would be more sensitive to pricing than what they've shown. But it is reflecting in the University of Michigan Consumer Survey, where inflation expectations are now expected to be 4.3% a year from now, which is a big jump from 3.3%. So this is the thing that the Fed has been really keeping an eye on, is expectations of inflation. This, if you think prices are going to go up, Chris, in a year, what are you going to do to your prices now? If you're selling,
I'm going to raise them.
You got to raise them, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, where if the expectations are at a certain level, reality becomes a certain level. Mm-hmm. And if expectations remain anchored, which is kind of like the hot button term back in 2022, the Fed will have to keep rates higher for longer to slow down those higher price expectations, which again the Michigan University of Michigan survey cite that the fear of tariffs has been the cause of this big jump in inflation expectations.
And that's causing eggs because they're blaming the bird flu on eggs.
Yeah, so I think that the broad survey measures eggs. I don't know if it exceeds gas prices because gas prices have been coming down too, right? So I think the respondents in the survey are more saying tariffs rather than eggs. At least that's what the article from CNBC says.
Yeah. It's interesting here. You have big, probably some small chains too, but big breakfast places like Waffle House. They're adding egg surcharges on everything that has an egg on it. 50 cents surcharge, $1 surcharge at Cole's Place, wherever that is. $3 surcharge at Village Grill in Royal
These are
Oak.
all at Detroit. I pulled the Detroit article, but surcharges for eggs is probably common nationwide. We don't go to breakfast places, but
I feel like I need to go.
My
this
wife's
weekend.
allergic to eggs, so
fair enough.
we've been left unscathed from this.
You get to not have the surcharge. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I feel like we need to go to brunch this weekend or something and just see. Because
Yeah,
first of all, I
get
can't
slapped
get
with
eggs,
the
like I said,
surcharge.
but the restaurants can. So, well, all right. Egg prices are on the rise again, and but don't be the guy that's at Costco buying a whole truckload of eggs.
Yeah. So, yeah, the news, this is from the Detroit Free Press. The Waffle House is adding 50% per egg surcharge. So that, if you bought a dozen of those 50-cent eggs, $6. As a Californian, that is a steal. So if you need eggs, go to the Waffle House wherever you go. But the price of eggs is already priced into the price of the meal, right? So this is on top of whatever you're paying for. Whatever, we don't have Waffle Houses here in California, so whatever you're paying for breakfast there.
This says egg prices are expected to rise by 20%.
20, yeah.
20% over the year, while overall food is forecast to increase by 2.2. What in the world is going on?
Yeah.
20%.
So right now, the average cost of eggs for a dozen is $5.30.
I don't know where those eggs are. That's insanity.
Yeah,
There's no
the
$5
non-California.
eggs.
So, but the nationwide average, right? So, 20% to that. We expect $6.24 per dozen eggs nationwide. So in California, that'll probably be $12 eggs pretty soon.
Yeah, when are they going to hit $20 here in Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Sooner than later.
So the bird flu, we've had to call, it looks like 17 million birds to prevent spread. But again, to produce egg viable chickens, how long does that take? You'd have to basically rebirth all these cold chickens.
That's outside of my expertise. I don't know the answer to
we should
that.
get farmers on our. We do have a farmer on the team.
That's true. That's true. All right, let's go to our last topic here. Amazon's revenue finally exceeds Walmart. This is actually pretty impressive. We have a chart that shows since 1996, and you have Walmart's revenue just climbing and climbing and climbing, like most companies do, right? Just go, 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 go. Nice, perfect line. And then you've got this little company called Amazon with a hockey stick. And, really started growing in like 2018. I mean, it certainly was not small in 2018, but it just started to go crazy, right? And this last quarter, they just surpassed Walmart. So 187.8 billion with a B in revenue. 169, that's Amazon, versus 169.59 at Walmart. Also, net income is way higher at Amazon and has been for a while. Now, Amazon will whipsaw their net income when they decide to go invest in a bunch of stuff. That's just kind of the ethos of the company. but 21.2 billion with a B net income versus 4.58 billion at Walmart. Wow. What do you make of this?
Yeah, so Walmart's profit is 2.6% relative to Amazon's profit of 11%. So it's
Wow.
a fivefold better. I don't know, fivefold improvement over Walmart's profit percentage.
Yeah.
So it's a better business. It is. It has a lot of different tentacles or business units that are doing different things, right? AWS, now their AI, and Walmart's sole revenue source is retail.
I wish we could compare retail to retail. That'd be an interesting chart. You know, if we looked at Walmart, which is retail, versus Amazon retail,
Yeah.
which is obviously the biggest part of Amazon, but and I know they make money on retail, but probably not nearly as much if you strip out AWS, for example.
Yeah, it's not 11%. There's no way.
And that's the thing. It's probably, you know, let's call it 5. Let's assume that it's still a little better than Walmart because there's brick and mortar, whatever. But then let's say that maybe AWS is, I don't know, 20 or 30% margins, you know, like these other cloud companies, right? Could even be higher. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, well, that's the news that surprised me is I thought Amazon lapped Walmart years ago. I didn't realize it just happened this week.
You know, that's a good point. That's a good point. Man,
But it shows you how
companies sell
massive
a lot of
Walmart
stuff.
is. Yeah. Because we rarely go to Walmart. If we could just order something on Amazon, because we're Prime members, that's so much easier.
Is there one close to you, though?
There's a Walmart that's less than a half mile away from us, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. We'd have to drive forever. I mean, they just aren't.
But
aren't
the issue
around
is
at all.
they lock up everything. So I need to go get kids' cold medicine locked up. So you got to press the button and wait like 15 minutes for a 2-minute trip. So Walmart or anyone who locks up their stuff, again, they all deserve a slap in the face. I know shrinkage, yada, yada. We have episodes of that. That data has been debunked. So come on. Like, stop locking your stuff up.
Does that happen? Is that an area thing? Like if you go to the Target,
Probably. Yeah.
Does the
I live in
Target
the ghetto.
lock stuff up? You live in the ghetto. You don't live in the ghetto.
No, I guess if you go to a more uppity area, I didn't see stuff locked up. Like my kids go like sing in gymnastics in areas outside of my suburb. Nothing's locked up.
Interesting.
But if you lock stuff up, you got to staff up,
yeah.
right? So there's some kind of cost to that,
Yeah.
or admit that shrinkage or theft isn't as big of an issue as you put out there.
Yeah.
I know theft's an issue, it sucks to steal, but it's not. I don't know if it's worth the inconvenience that everyone has to suffer through here.
All right. That's all the time we have today. Good conversation. That was fun. That's
Yeah.
some good stuff. Hopefully we don't talk about eggs ever again, but if they're going to go up by
I hope this is
20,
the last episode of eggs. If we got to
gonna go
keep
by-
talking about eggs, yeah, it's bad.
Well, might swing by the store this afternoon before the weekend rush, see if I can
Hoard
pick
up.
some.
Just load up on your...
But I couldn't get any last week is my point. So we don't have any. You know, I'm not
Oh.
trying to load up. I'm just trying to get 18 or something. Quick 18 pack.
Just being reasonable.
Just be reasonable.
I saw a meme where that said, I won't tell anyone I won the lottery. There will be signs. I don't know if you see those memes, but the guy was just holding a carton of eggs.
There you go. There you go. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
See ya.
See ya.